Welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. This is an exciting day because we are gathered here with City Council and with our cabinet leaders to launch a process for a 2025 Vibrant Denver bond campaign, which will make key investments in Denver neighborhoods that will help support a vibrant city for years to come, and do it all without raising taxes. So we're excited to tell you a little bit about the Vibrant Denver Bond Campaign, about the process, what you should be excited about, how you can get involved, and what's coming. This will build the public spaces, like this iconic one that we're in now, the Carla Madison Rec Center. It is the parks, the rec centers, the safety facilities, the libraries that make the city vibrant, and we'll do that for decades to come. As you all know, about every decade or so, the city undergoes a process to evaluate what our capital needs are, and then to be able to issue a public bond to allow us to accelerate that process. We've recently updated what we have as our top priority of project lists across the city. There are about $7 billion of priorities, but we only do about $300 million a year of capital investments, so we know occasionally the city takes the moment to try to catch up on those key public investments that help bring joy to the entire city. So I want to say a couple things about this bond, then I'm going to introduce President Sandoval to talk a little bit more about the process and where we're going. We know that there is excitement to get these projects up and moving quickly, and so we have right now are drawing close to the conclusion of our last bond campaign. Now more than 400 projects from our 2017 campaign have been launched. That includes 14 library improvements, 50 parks, and 22 rec center improvements, and those projects will all be breaking ground by the end of this calendar year for completion by 2027. So we are on schedule for the last bond to be completed and wrapping up. I think this is the right time to start looking at the next set of investments for the city. This will be an accelerated bond cycle. It will be a 6-year bond cycle rather than the traditional 10-year cycle. We think we are going to focus on really shovel-ready projects that are can be transformational and catalytic for neighborhoods all across Denver, but where we can get shovels in the ground quickly, get people to work, help stimulate jobs across the city, and also get these key investments up and rolling. Important to mention 17 times in this press conference, that is no new taxes. This is not a tax increase. That would be, again, no new taxes without a tax increase to make sure to build public investments. But I think we also, all kidding aside, know this is a time where a lot of folks in Denver are struggling, where people are working hard to make ends meet. We're trying to be wary of not increasing costs at a time when folks are trying to manage those costs. So very important to us and to the council, these are key investments we can make with the city's existing bonding capacity without increasing taxes. The other exciting thing to know is that this is a public process that we all do together as Denverites. So if you want to get involved, we want your input, we want your opinion on what the most important improvements are you'd like to see in your neighborhood. You can start that feedback today. Immediately today, we will have an online survey you can take. If you come to denvergov.org/vibrantbond, you can immediately provide feedback on the things that you think are the top priorities. We will then do a series of community meetings all across the city in the weeks and months to come with city council members, where you can come and have in-depth conversations with us about your priorities and where you think we should rank those given investments. And then if you want to be even more involved, we will also have committees that we determine for different areas of priorities that folks can sign up to be members of. And so step one is fill out the survey today. Step 2 is come to our community meetings if you'd like to do that. And then as we get a better sense for your feedback on what the top priorities are, together with the council president, we'll build committees based on those categories and we'll ask residents to serve on that. So this is really the start of a process, and we want every Denverite to be involved. So please take the survey, come to the community meetings, get involved in the committees, and mostly talk to your neighbors about the things that you're passionate about so we can make sure those things become part of the 2025 Vibrant Denver Bond. I am delighted to be the opening act for my friend and amazing leader who is our city council president, who has the experience of having both led and been involved in these bonds as a public leader as well as a resident, and will lead this process through the council over the months ahead. So please, a very warm welcome for your city council president, my friend Amanda Sandoval.
Good afternoon, everyone. Great to see you. And first, let's talk about the weather, right? So thank you for braving the cold to be here today. And it's an honor to be here to announce the Vibrant Denver 2025 General Obligation Bond. And I just want you to all understand, it's an investment in Denver's future. Denver's bond has played a vital role in shaping our city throughout the years, delivering catalytic projects that strengthen our communities. For example, the reconstruction of the 16th Street Mall, which will hopefully finish up this year, the construction of a new fire station in Northeast Denver, a new construction of a Westwood Recreation Center, the first of its kind, and for me, in Northwest Denver, a playground in Inspiration Point that never had a playground before in Northwest Denver. These projects and many more enhance Denverites' daily lives and create a lasting legacy for future generations. It's important, as the mayor mentioned, to emphasize that the general obligation bonds do not raise taxes. So we're going to repeat that one more time. Let me repeat. The general obligation bonds do not raise taxes. Instead, they allow us to reinvest into the infrastructure that defines Denver, such as this rec center, for our parks, our streets, our public spaces, our cultural centers, our libraries, and without adding additional financial burden on Denver residents. The mayor's office, in partnership with City Council, will be facilitating, as the mayor mentioned, the outreach process, but most importantly, alongside Denver, working closely with our residents from all the 78 unique neighborhoods to ensure that the community has a voice, and for us at the city, that equity remains at the heart of our decisions. And I say that because when I became councilperson for Northwest Denver, I did an analysis of how much equity had been put into Northwest Denver, everything west of the Platte River. You would be really sad to see the type of investment, lack of investment, in neighborhoods that have historically been redlined and historically disadvantaged on the west side of Denver. And so we need to make sure that through this process, we have equity at the forefront of our minds. Our goal is to build a bond package that reflects the values of our cities. All those values are inclusivity, sustainability, affordable housing, public safety, and strong transportation networks. As we shape this bond package, as we mentioned, we need your input. This is for you, the people of Denver. Over the next several months, we will be engaging community to determine the priorities that matter most. We want your help. We want to ensure our neighborhoods flourish, not just for today, but for the future generations. I urge you to share this opportunity with your families, friends, and neighbors. So for those of you who go out on a Friday night, this Friday, talk about this process. For those of you who go outside and you throw your trash, talk about this process. For those of you who are in a book club, talk about this process. If you have kids in sports, talk about this process. I ask that each of you tell 5 people, which means 3 people will repeat it, and that's how we get a community groundswell. Your voice is essential to this process, and please participate by visiting denvergov.com/vibrantbond. This summer, when City Council refers the general obligation bond question to the voters for the November 2025 ballot, I speak on behalf of my council members. We want to ensure it reflects the needs and aspirations of the people of Denver. This is your city. This is our city. And this is your chance to shape the future for the next 7 generations. And with that, I'd like to introduce back up to the stage my partner, Mayor Johnston, to answer any questions. Thank you all.
Great. Thank you all for being here, and thank you so much to Councilman Watson and Council President Pro Tem Romero Campbell as well. I just reinforce what the President said, which is this is an incredible moment where the people of Denver get to decide their own destiny. We get to figure out what the things that matter most to Denverites are and how we can come together to invest in those things and build that sense of community that we want to experience every time you walk out your front door. And so while the rest of the world can feel chaotic, this is a chance for Denver to control its own destiny and make sure the things that make this city joyful and vibrant are on the front of our priority list. And this is your chance to make sure those things you care most about get onto that list. So with that, I'm happy to stop and take questions if people have them about this process.
Will it be similar to previous bond packages? Do you have an estimate?
We think a lot of that will be driven by the feedback we get from community in terms of what those priorities are. We know we have more bond capacity than we've had on previous bonds, but we don't know that we need to use it all. And so I think we'd probably be in line with previous bond sizes, but we won't know until we see what the requests are from residents. Yes?
Previous bond packages have been in 2021, 2017, 2007. It kind of seems like they're getting closer and closer together. Can you speak to why now, and are they getting closer and closer together?
They range in distance based on needs. As you know, there was a smaller bond in 2021, which was mostly a COVID-era stimulus investment. So sometimes bonds can be issued as a specific area of targeted focus, but generally the general obligation bonds are somewhere around every 10 years, where we'll be at 8 years out by 2025. What we think right now is there is a great deal of need for capital investment across the city that we hear bubbling up from all neighborhoods. Some of those are deferred maintenance, but some of them are really new services and resources we need as the city grows. And the city has grown tremendously over the last 5 years, and so I think as we accelerate in growth, we'll accelerate in more need for services. We want to make sure we keep up with people's needs and demands.
Does a bond mean, like, you keep saying no new taxes, but borrowing can you just explain anything with that?
Yeah, sure. So the way this structure is the city has borrowing capacity that we can issue public bonds and then pay them back. And as we take them out for different purposes, we pay them off over time. We have a number of bonds we'll be paying off in the next 2 or 3 years. And so that new capacity is now available to issue out in bonds again. So we have to make sure we have, like you have your mortgage, you can only mortgage as much as you can pay each month. Here, the city has a payment capacity linked to how much we can bond. And as some of the old bonds will roll off, we'll have enough capacity to add on this new debt that we can pay off within a regular bond cycle without stretching our budget.
But you can't come up, there is no cap right now. You said you're going to have to wait to see the projects that come forward.
Yeah, the total amount of bonding capacity is over $1 billion that we have available for the city. We wouldn't plan to use all of that for this initial bond, but the bonding capacity is larger than that in terms of the total debt the city can issue, but it might be, you might do it for an individual item or need that comes up. But the total bonding capacity we watch, and it's more than we'll need for this specific GEO bond, but we know there's enough capacity now to issue a GEO bond at the scale of ones we've done in the past.
Mayor, I know that you're going to get some feedback from the community, but are there specific areas for this bond package that you would like to see addressed that maybe were not addressed in those previous ones?
Yeah, I mean, each of the council members and each of the districts over the years add priority capital improvement projects that they have in their neighborhood. And we keep that running list through what we call a capital improvement project list, which is our CIP plan. That's updated on all the capital projects we know of around the city. So that is a good place to start for what we know we've heard from communities over the last decade. But we know that's not exhaustive. There might be new needs that have come up since then that we'll hear from communities on. So we know we have a list of items that are priorities that we'd be trying to find time or capacity to invest in over the next 5 or 10 or 20 years. This would allow us to accelerate some of those projects and also potentially find new projects that neighbors raise that we weren't yet aware of.
Could you give a sense of the timeline of when Denver residents can expect to see these capital investments and how you expect them to change over the years?
Yeah, so great question. So the key timeline is first we'll spend the next 3 or 4 months getting community feedback, both from the surveys, community meetings, talking to your council members. We'll work with committees that will help prioritize among those projects and bring them up to us. And then we'll work with council to refer a measure with that final list of approved projects. That'll be sometime in the summer. And then the voters would all see this on the November ballot. So voters of Denver have to approve this. They get to decide if they want to invest in these projects or not. But we'll spend first few months listening, then building a list, then having council's support and finalize that list, and then it goes to the November ballot. And then our goal is that these projects should be ready to break ground in 2026. And so we're looking for projects that are ready to begin work as soon as we approve the bond, so we can get them up and built within that 6-year timeline.
If you were to take this survey as a Denver resident, what feedback would you give?
Wow, that's a very tricky question. I would say I probably have the longest list of all, so I have probably 150 projects. But I think that's why we'll get feedback from others to narrow down that to the top priority ones. I'm sure the council members are the same. It's like pick your favorite child. So I think there's a great balance of items. But for us, this is a really fun chance for Denver to dream what we want the next 30 years to look like, because this is a chance to say, I mean, you think about how many moments of joy I've had with my kids in parks in the city or in rec centers, or how many times teaching my kid to read in the Denver Public Library, or times you don't remember, like taking a flyover to get to Rockies, to see the Rockies in downtown. That wouldn't have been built, that exit to Coors Field, if it hadn't been for a 1993 bond. Like, those are the places we know and recognize, and sometimes the places we don't even know to recognize. They just make our lives a whole lot easier and more enjoyable. So we think this is a great chance for Denver to dream about what we can be over the next 30 years, and that's a once-in-a-decade opportunity.
Obviously, a lot of people in the city are going to have a lot of ideas about what they want to do on. How are you and city council going to work on prioritizing these projects that we're going?
Yeah, and I'll let council president talk to this too, because she's led a process on this in the past. But normally what we'll do is, after we get the first round of feedback from residents, we'll put them into clusters. We'll say, okay, wow, lots of feedback about rec center ideas, lots of feedback about arts, lots of feedback about mobility and connectivity. And then each of those areas would be a committee. We'll invite residents to join those committees. The president will assign council members to also be on those committees. And then those committees will look at, okay, of the 50 rec center ideas we have around the city, which ones do we think are the most viable or the most urgent? Of the 127 arts-based ideas around the city, which do we think are the most relevant and urgent? And then we'd cull those to a smaller number and then bring those to city council, and they would make final decisions on how you make each of those items fit, to make sure we have a balance of geography across the city, to make sure we're focused on equity, and to make sure it fits within a budget that the city can meet. And that's kind of the process of taking that feedback and turning it into a ballot issue in November. Council President, anyone want to add to that?
So I'll just also answer that we have to keep a focus on equity. And so we, in Blueprint Denver and in a lot of our adopted plans, we have an equity lens. And so what areas got a lot of investment in 2017? What areas got investment in 2021? And you have to take those and then take that information, take the information that we get back from community, and make sure that we're focusing in disadvantaged neighborhoods that maybe did not get bond process, did not have an advocate. When you're in an underserved community or underrepresented community, how do you advocate to get on a bond? What does that even mean? And so we need to make sure that we do this process for my council representatives and myself and the mayor with a lens of equity throughout this whole entire process.
Yes, Frank.
Yeah, Frank with the Colfax Herald. How will the committees be constructed and about when?
Great question. I think that the mayor's office will work on both getting feedback and nominations. We'll partner with the president on council representation, and then we'll accept applications. So I think we want to get a first round of feedback from people on the surveys and in the community meetings in the next few weeks. So I think we'd imagine in the next kind of 3 to 6 weeks, we would have those up and ready to start working.
Time for one more media question.
I'm looking at Billy. Am I right, Billy, on that answer? Okay. The real answer is you should ask Billy, but Billy says I'm more or less correct. Was there one last question? Yes, sir.
Are people in the driver's seat, or is there some steerage of these projects to fulfill the Vibrant Denver goals that you have for your administration?
Great question. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of the goals we're working on that aren't directly infrastructure priorities. Obviously, this bond is around infrastructure. It's around building new capital investments, which are rec centers or parks or, police department stations or roads and infrastructure. So these are not funding programs, they're not funding services. So some of our goals are focused on services. But yes, some of our goals are around infrastructure long-term, and so we think that we do need to make sure that we have those needs met. But I think the people of Denver are in the driver's seat on this. This is their chance to drive feedback on what they really want to see most. We have a long list of items we could invest in. They get to decide which ones are the top priority. And I think this is where the city has laid out our overall plan of the things we need for that investment. But we'll look at what the voters elevate and the residents elevate as their top priorities, match that with the council priorities, and come up with we think, an inspiring combination that will build a Denver that's going to be vibrant for decades to come. Thank you all so much for being here. Have a fantastic day. Stop and work out on the first floor on the way out, and you'll already be healthier than when you started. Thanks so much.